Breaking news in the world of Hollywood. An American icon, comic books, has passed away. Marvel Comics co-creator Stan Lee, the brains behind Spider-Man, Black Panther, the Fantastic Four, has died. He was 95, and CNN's Stephanie Elam takes a look back at his legendary writing career.
Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the X-Men. They're among the most iconic comic book heroes in history, and they simply would not exist without Stan Lee. The visionary behind Marvel Comics lived a life almost as incredible as the characters he created.
I'm pretty proud of the fact that some of the stories that I wrote so many years ago are still being read and hopefully enjoyed by the public, and people are making motion pictures based on them and television series.
Spider-Man debuted in 1962 and became Lee's most successful comic book creation.
Spider-Man is my favorite because he's the most popular and he's known and loved worldwide.
Lee's spidey senses were tingling. Years later, in 2002, the first Spider-Man film was released and was a blockbuster hit.
As a child, I didn't really know anybody who shot webs or crawled on buildings or wore suits of armor and flew or anything like that. I just imagined them, and there they were.
He also imagined Thor, the Incredible Hulk, and the Fantastic Four. They were flawed people with extraordinary powers.
I never had any idea that these characters would last this long. In fact, I and the people I worked with who co-created them with me, the many talented artists, we just hoped that the books would sell and we'd continue to get our salary and be able to pay our rent. The movies have done so much for the characters. The movies have given the comic book characters even more prestige.
The native New Yorker was born Stanley Morgan Lieber. He had humble beginnings, but his love for comics took him much farther than he ever dreamed. He also earned a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
In a million years, I never thought, that I'd get something like this.
As his creations became larger than life on the big screen, he also kept a feverish pace, making appearances at events like Comic-Con in San Diego.
How are you? Glad to see you.
Though his life seemed charmed, it wasn't without adversity. Lee was married to his wife Joan for over 60 years, and they had 2 daughters. However, his youngest only lived for a few days. In his 80s, Lee was involved in various lawsuits against Marvel and Disney over the span of 7 years. In September 2012, he had surgery for a pacemaker and joked he was trying to become more like his Iron Man character, Tony Stark.
To me, the most important thing in the world is to keep busy, and I'm happy to say I'm lucky enough to still be busy.
The Stan Lee Foundation was also a passion project for Lee, who seemed to believe with great power comes great responsibility.
What we concentrate on is education, educating children.
Stan Lee!
I never would have dreamed years ago that anything like this would happen.
The king of comics, who was adored worldwide, was most proud of his family and his comic heroes. Perhaps Lee will be remembered as a legendary innovator with an uncanny ability to capture the imagination.
Excelsior!
Legend Stan Lee.
Tributes are pouring in for the legendary playwright Neil Simon. He died yesterday at the age of 91 of complications from pneumonia. Simon's hits include The Odd Couple and Lost in Yonkers, which won a Pulitzer Prize. Actor Matthew Broderick said, "I owe him a career." And Nathan Lane added, "I am so proud to have played a small part in his remarkable legacy." Jamie Wax shows us Simon's iconic work.
Look at this, will you? The only man in the world with clenched hair.
Neil Simon combined humor and introspection in writing dozens of successful and acclaimed plays and films. He spoke to Sunday Morning in 2006.
I find it easier to write in the way most of us talk.
Thank you, Mr. Dooley. Next time you're in New York, just call me up.
Simon credited his sense of humor with helping him through a difficult Bronx childhood. He met comedian Carl Reiner in one of his first jobs, writing for Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows.
He never spoke up. He spoke up when he wrote it down, when he started writing plays, he became the force of nature.
Simon's first Broadway hit, Come Blow Your Horn, opened in 1961. The Odd Couple opened 4 years later.
Eat over the dish, I just vacuumed the rug.
It is now one of the world's most frequently produced plays. Bill Evans was a longtime friend and colleague.
What do you think Neil Simon's legacy will be?
I hope that it's certainly the comedy, and that there's a humanity there.
In all his work, including his acclaimed autobiographical Brighton Beach trilogy, his writing examined the complexities of relationships, families, friends, and lovers in ways that everyone could relate to.
I seem to touch that aspect of their lives that's familiar with them as familiar with me. Making a connection with millions of people is pretty good.
For CBS This Morning, Jamie Wax, New York.
In 1966, at one time on Broadway, he had 4 plays: Barefoot in the Park, The Odd Couple, Sweet Charity, Star Spangled Girl. When I was growing up in New York, he was Broadway.
Yeah, there was nothing better.
Yeah, he really did.
I like his philosophy, Anthony. I like to write the way people talk.
Yes.
What a novel idea. That works.
John McCain, senator, presidential candidate, and Vietnam War hero, has died after a 13-month battle with brain cancer. The Republican from Arizona was 81. His family announced yesterday he was discontinuing medical treatment. CBS News chief congressional correspondent Nancy Cortez looks back at the life of John McCain.
I've been an imperfect servant of my country for many years, but I've been her servant first, last, and always.
John Sidney McCain III was a military hero who became a maverick politician. He joined the family business, becoming a Navy pilot. In 1967, on a bombing run over Hanoi, he was shot down and badly injured, then bayoneted after splashing down in a lake.
When they found out that my father was an admiral, they took me to a hospital.
While holding him as a prisoner of war, the North Vietnamese tried to exploit his family connections. They offered him an early release, but he refused to violate the military code of first in, first out. He was finally freed after 5.5 years of beatings and torture.
I do not recommend the treatment, but I know that I'm a better person for it.
In 1982, he was elected to the U.S. House from Arizona, and 4 years later to the Senate. He earned a reputation for straight talk.
If the special interests continue to play a greater and greater role in the formulation of legislation, then we will see a breakdown of democracy as we know it. And I'm not exaggerating.
In 2008, he clinched the Republican nomination, choosing another maverick as a running mate.
Governor Sarah Palin of the great state of Alaska.
Palin energized conservatives. But in the midst of a financial crisis, the country was ready for a change. Democrat Barack Obama beat McCain with a 2-to-1 electoral landslide. He returned to the Senate, became chair of the Armed Services Committee, drew fire from Donald Trump.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
And returned it.
That in many respects, this administration is in disarray.
But in the summer of 2017, the normally sharp McCain grew fatigued and had a few verbal stumbles.
In the case of Mr. Comey, the President Comey, case of President Trump.
Tests revealed glioblastoma, an aggressive form of brain cancer.
This disease has never had a more worthy opponent.
Still, the former fighter pilot returned to the Senate to cast a decisive vote against a slapdash effort to repeal parts of Obamacare. And after 3.5 decades in Congress, he left his colleagues with an entreaty to work together.
We're getting nothing done, my friends. We're getting nothing done. And the times when I was involved, even in a modest way, with working on a bipartisan response to a national problem or threat, are the proudest moments of my career and by far the most satisfying.
A message only a maverick could deliver. Nancy Cortez, CBS News, Washington.
To repeat, Senator John McCain of Arizona has died after a 13-month battle with brain cancer. He was 81. There will be more about Senator McCain on your local news, on this CBS station, and on our 24-hour streaming news service, CBSN. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Rena Ninen, CBS News, New York.
Burt Reynolds has died. No cause of death has yet been released. The New York Post is reporting at this hour that he passed away today at the age of 82. According to the Post, his manager has confirmed the death to The Hollywood Reporter, saying he died today at Jupiter Medical in Florida, Jupiter, Florida, on the East Coast. A former college football player who took up acting after an injury cut short his playing career, Burt Reynolds spent a decade taking on bit roles in Hollywood before breaking through with roles in some of the biggest films of the decade, including Deliverance, The Longest Yard, and the movie for which he's probably best known, Smokey and the Bandit. Reynolds was born in Lansing, Michigan in February of 1936. His family settled in Riviera Beach, Florida, after his father, who served in the Army, returned from Europe in 1946. He was an all-state football player in high school, attended Florida State University, played for the Noles on an athletic scholarship at halfback. Although he intended to go pro, Burt Reynolds' career was cut short by a series of injuries. He briefly contemplated a career in law enforcement, but a teacher recognized his talent while reading Shakespeare in English class and pushed him toward acting. The move would be a fruitful one, earning him a Florida State Drama Award in 1956, which came with a scholarship to Hyde Park Playhouse, a summer stock theater in Hyde Park. Later, he went on to be known by most Americans and people around the world. An iconic American actor, Burt Reynolds, dead today at 82. He died, we've just learned from his manager, of cardiac arrest. Further details have not yet been released. When we have them, we'll bring them to you.
TV pioneer and journalist Robin Leach has died at the age of 76. Leach was known for hosting the popular show Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous and reporting on A-list celebrities. Tonight, KCAL 9's Lisa Siegel takes us through his life and his legacy.
What a man, what a legacy. So here we are at a Rolls dealership because this is how Robin Leach rolled, with, of course, his champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
Your host on this exclusive edition of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous is celebrity interviewer Robin Leach.
He was the man that put the Lux in luxury and rarely was seen without his signature drink.
My, hasn't travel changed?
Robin Leach, the debonair TV host that talked of champagne wishes and caviar dreams, has died at the age of 76. He had been hospitalized since November after suffering a stroke. His kids issued this statement. Despite the past 10 months, what a beautiful life he had. Everyone's support and love over the past almost 1 year has been incredible, and we are so grateful.
I'm Robin Leach.
Leach began his career in newspapers and moved to the U.S. from London in the early 60s. Then in 1981, he was part of the team of correspondents that helped launch the highly successful Entertainment Tonight.
Nobody has searched harder than I to discover the world's perfect paradise.
Just 3 years later, he co-created Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, the show that put him and luxury on the map.
He understood that what we really wanted to know is how much their outfit cost. We wanted to know what they did at home. We wanted to know everything that was in their closet and everything that went on in their bedroom.
Entertainment journalist Jeannie Wolf worked with him and called him a dear friend. She said his reporting was larger than life, and so was his presence.
Much more than his looks, people always remember that voice.
In his later years, Leach called Vegas home, still the toast of the town and still covering entertainment. Wolf says his sense of humor always stood out.
And I'd see him in Vegas, and he'd say, "Look at me, Jeannie. Look how I look. Should I be working? No, but I'm having fun."
Robin Leach's legacy will forever live on, not just with his
champagne wishes
and caviar dreams, but as a true family man at heart.
Robin's family stayed out of the limelight, and yet he said he'd like to be remembered as a father and grandfather. I think he'll be remembered as a ringmaster with a diamond whip.
Robin Leach's kids say a memorial is being planned, and as Jeannie Wolf said, his legacy will live on. So as tribute to him, we sit in a Rolls Royce and wish you champagne wishes and caviar dreams. I'm Lisa Siegel, KCAL 9 News.